Final hour OverDrive continues. Brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Bryan Hayes, Jamie Noodles McLennan, Michael DiStefano, a.k.a. Al's brother. Yeah. Big hour coming up. Herm Edwards on the Atlanta Falcons going to Michael Penix Jr.
Yeah.
Over Kirk Cousins this deep into the season. Is it a gamble? Is it something that you had to do? What does he make of this news from Kansas City? It sounds like Mahomes will likely play on this high ankle sprain. Does he think Josh Allen officially has the MVP locked up and it's over? There's a lot to get to with Herm a little bit later this hour. And Darren Dreger coming up in a moment on a lot of news and notes throughout the NHL, including Leafs stars tonight. But I have teased this Charlotte Hornets fiasco a few different times.
Fiasco.
It is quite something. So I guess they had their mascot come out dressed as Santa a couple of nights ago, right? So they had their mascot come out, and here he is, and they were doing this in-game skit where a young fan had been promised a PlayStation 5, right? So he's in there. It's the second quarter. They're getting blown out. Well, not blown out, but they're losing to Philly, and Philly stinks. And, over comes someone from the team, and there's the mascot, and he's like, hey, buddy, you got a PS5? And apparently this kid had asked Santa for a PlayStation 5, so it turns out the Charlotte Hornets are going to get out in front of this, and they hand him a PlayStation 5, and the place goes nuts.
That's awesome.
What a great, great story. Yeah. They go back to the game, the cameras get off this kid, and they rip the PlayStation away from him and hand him a jersey instead and say, you're not getting the PlayStation 5. That's what happened.
Yeah.
And
insanity.
It is insanity. And I guess Alexei Phillips is the boy's uncle. He's a season ticket holder down there. He told the Queen City News that the family had been approached by staff to participate in the skit earlier in the game. And it turns out one of the staff members quietly informed him just seconds before this stunt happened that they actually were not going to allow the kid to keep the PlayStation 5. But the kid was not aware of it at the time. So the kid is sitting there thinking, this is amazing. And apparently he was not alone. Turns out the cheerleaders, the dancers, everyone within the stadium was of the belief this kid was walking away from that stadium with a PlayStation 5. And they ripped it away from him.
So he was the Grinch, not
basically
Santa.
The Grinch. And this just feels like such a Charlotte Hornets discussion that we're having right now. Naturally, it went online. Millions of people reacted to it online. It's gone viral, and they have obviously been bullied into now getting this kid a PlayStation 5.
And plus.
Plus. This guy's going to be living with LaMelo Ball probably. He'll have courtside seats for the next 30 years. And I just cannot understand how multi-billion-dollar companies
disgraceful
can run an operation like this where you think it's a good idea to use him as a prop for PlayStation because they probably had some deal, right, Noodles, with PlayStation or something like that, and then 100%. They rip it away from the kid and say, here, take a jersey that you probably don't want either. And naturally they got bullied into doing the right thing in the end, but what a joke of a franchise.
God, that's somebody in the PR department trying to overthink it and go, we can do this and we can do that. The unfortunate part is the organization, the owner, everybody, they take shrapnel. This is somebody who's an idiot in the PR department or in the public relations department, something like that, where you're just like, we'll do this and we'll take it this direction. Or maybe he wanted it for his kid. So he's like, I'll pretend to give it away and I'll take it home myself.
Right.
Because it was donated to our organization. Either way, it's an absolute loss. It's an atrocity. And now all of a sudden, to me, that's, always says that's a fireable offense. Whoever put that together, that's a fireable offense.
You can't get it back into the bag now.
No.
Of course you're going to give the kid a PlayStation, and now he's going to get some VIP treatment, and you're going to try to promote it hey, it turns out we love you, and he's going to say no hard feelings, because if you're the kid, this is going to work out great for you.
Oh, yeah.
You got duped and you got scarred for life, but in the end, you're going to get something great.
Kid, they love, now he's on TV, everyone's talking to him. He's probably doing a car wash, he'll be on Conan, all this stuff.
He'll be doing the rounds.
Oh,
exactly.
Yeah.
If Ellen was still around, he'd be there. He probably wouldn't want to.
Be on Kimmel or whatever's going on.
Yeah.
And the team issued a statement saying, quote, the skit included bad decision-making and poor communication. Simply put, we turned the ball over and we apologize, end quote. So, now they've promised to make amends by giving the boy a PlayStation 5. along with a VIP experience of a future game.
He drop-kicked the ball in the kid's face. That's what they did.
And using the mascot, too.
Gross.
Like, the mascot's out there. Hey, there's your PlayStation 5. Give me that, you loser. Like, what a scummy play by a team that would be on a short list of the ones I would think would do something like this.
Franchises.
That's the Charlotte Hornets in a nutshell. Here's our TSN hockey insider, Darren Dreger. What's happening, Dregs?
Hey, guys. I'm actually just getting home. I was in Muskoka for the last, I would say, 30 hours. How about this? Helping a buddy move. Who does that?
Wow. I
know.
No, like, it's one thing if it's your neighbor around the corner or something. You went to Muskoka to help him move? You're a good Samaritan, man.
Me and some buddies, old hockey dads, right? So it's a tight fraternity.
Okay.
You do what you can to help people, but just getting back in time for the Leaf game tonight.
All right, well, there you go. I mean, we've got the most expensive line in NHL history playing tonight. I'm sure you've heard the news. Marner, Nylander, and Matthews. What do you make of it, Dregs?
Yeah, I mean it's interesting. And one thing we know about Craig Berube is, look, he knows he can always go back to the old faithful, which is Matthews and Marner. We saw the chemistry when Matthews was out with Marner and Tavares, and that worked. I wouldn't say Willie's been quiet, but, why not just put it all together and see what happens? And, if it works for a period, great. If it works for a game, that's good too. And if you extend it beyond that, that's a lot of firepower though, right? Loaded up on one line. I don't know that there's enough puck for each one of those guys. So that could be a bit of a problem.
Yeah, that is going to be the question tonight. How much puck is going to be there for the three of them? But it's listen, you're playing with house money. It's December.
Yeah.
You maybe motivate the guys. The other guys are, obviously hoping to drive their own lines, like John Tavares, Max Domi, et cetera. But we also saw David Camp has been activated off the IR, so he's playing. Basically, everyone's available now. I mean, we're waiting for Stolars to return, but more or less, you got pretty much everyone ready to play. This is pretty substantial when you think about what the Leafs have gone through already this season.
It is, and look, I mean, certain guys are back now playing for jobs, and that Nicky Robertson would be in that category. I mean, that third line the other night on Sunday is coming off a pretty impressive showing. So can Robertson build off one game? He's going to have to if he wants to, extend his time in Toronto. But I think it's also a chance for, we talked about this, Noodles, on the broadcast and certainly during the game about how if there's an area of need, it would be probably up the middle, at center ice, in that third, maybe fourth hole, right? Well, David Camp has been out for a stretch, but he's not a terrible centerman, right? I mean, so... he's got market value, and he has value to the Toronto Maple Leafs. So we'll see kind of how things unfold between now and March 7th. But given the bodies they have, the NHL experience, there is opportunity for certain guys to prove that, they're playoff worthy and they're a big part of the team.
Dregs, we were talking about in the last hour the roster freeze over Christmas, and it's creeping up here. Some teams are doing some house cleaning as far as guys on waivers. Is there ever a chance that there's a big trade before it happens, or they maybe talk about it over Christmas? Because, we circle in a couple organizations, Buffalo, the New York Rangers, maybe Nashville would be in the market to maybe make a change and make a splash to jar their organizations.
Yeah, that's fair. And, there's a chance. The insiders kind of started kicking those tires earlier today and going around the National Hockey League and, just getting a temperature feel for what could happen between now and the roster freeze at midnight local tomorrow. I'd throw Pittsburgh into that mix. Kyle Dubas has already done some things, and I think he's pretty eager to add some more. The Montreal Canadiens, Kent Hughes has been in a lot of different conversations. Is it possible that, some of the conversations that he's had bear fruit with, kind of a soft deadline looming with the roster freeze? Sure, it's possible. And then you're right. I think most people are looking at the teams that have struggled the most, and, you got to put Buffalo at the top of that list right now. The messaging that I keep getting, though, from the Buffalo Sabres is that, hey, they're willing to do something big, they're willing to consider moving out top players. The problem is to make a move like that, if you're talking about, any of their top guys, Bo Byron comes to mind. There's been speculation around him. Well, he's got to get a top player back if he's moving out a top player like Bo Byram. So that might take a little bit longer.
Dregs, I want to go back to the Leafs for a second because obviously with the Stolarz injury, we now know he's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks. Dennis Hildeby is the goalie that's currently with Toronto, but would you say this might leave the door open for a return for Matt Murray to get back into the NHL?
Yeah, I think it definitely will. He was out for a bit in the American Hockey League. I think he returned on Sunday or on the weekend. So they probably want him to get a couple of starts there and just kind of test how he's feeling. So I think they'll have to go the combination of Joe Woll and Dennis Hildeby, through the roster freeze, come out of the Christmas break and see what that tandem looks like and then make a call there. But the messaging that I was getting yesterday was that there was a good sense that Matt Murray would be recalled at some point. I mean, this is glorious opportunity for Joseph Woll. Number one, the guy's got to stay healthy, and there's no reason to think that isn't going to happen unless he's wildly unlucky because, they took their time. He put in the work, and he looks like he's close to 100%. But how great would it be for him if he could kind of run the table here for a month or so? Then that takes a tremendous amount of heat off of that position. Because, look, Matt Murray is capable. His resume is what it is, but we've also seen him struggle at times historically. So they're sure hoping, the Maple Leafs, that is, that Joseph Woll is going to be able to shoulder the majority of the load.
With Darren Dreger, a TSN Hockey Insider. So Buffalo, they didn't just lose last night. They got embarrassed at the Bell Center.
Yeah.
The Rangers lose in Nashville. Like, those are the two teams of focus right now. It feels as if, like, neither team wants to move off their coach because of who they are, their veteran status, and they've already had turnover. Lindy Ruff's only 30 games into this, and Laviolette just took over last year, and look what he did. But, like, is there ever a line that you would think, like, if they cross that line, it's just inevitable you have to do something? Like, basically, it's the entertainment business. Your fans are going to lose their minds, and you almost are forced into a decision. And if we're not at that line yet for the Rangers and Sabres, how much further down this disastrous road could it go?
Well, I think you're a lot closer to that line, Brian, in New York than you might be in Buffalo.
Okay.
And, you've got Terry Pegula, who probably the last thing he wanted to do, even though, hey, Montreal's a beautiful city this time of year.
Yes, it is.
He's still celebrating his Bills win, and he's got to get on a flight to, try and give his boys a shot in the arm, being the Buffalo Sabres. And, what I was told was that, he was very encouraging. He was very supportive of Lindy, of Kevin, of everyone there. Just wanted the players to trust that, he believes that the answers are internal. So, okay, that's the message from Terry Pegula. And then they lay the egg that they did against the Montreal Canadiens. So, he's a loyal owner. He really, truly is. And he has given Kevin Adams basic autonomy, right? Change coaches, take some risk, and Ralph Kruger back in the day, all of that, he's manipulated his roster several different ways. So I don't know that Kevin feels like he's on a hot seat as we're having this conversation, but they're essentially a non-playoff team. I don't think they're going to find a way to creep back into the mix. So I wouldn't be surprised if at a point in the off season where ownership in Buffalo, decides maybe to go a different direction. New York, man, with that owner, James Dolan, the Dolan family, look out. It feels like it's approaching scorched earth for the New York Rangers. And depending on who you talk to, lots of people are looking at Chris Drury, the general manager, blaming him. It's all his fault. Some are suggesting that there's unrest between the players and Peter Laviolette around the room and on the bench. Well, that's what happens when you're supposed to be a top contending team in the league and you're failing in the fashion that the New York Rangers are currently dealing with.
Yeah, James Dolan is such a wild card. Like, the definition of one.
there's stories coming out of New York. I was talking to somebody yesterday on the plane, or the day before on the plane, and they were like, yeah, I used to work with the Dolan organization. He's like, I could tell you 50 stories of this guy being a wingnut walking in and firing people like out of nowhere. He's got to write a check to make these people disappear. It's just insanity the way he runs and does business there.
It is, and it's not just with how he does business with the sports franchises. That's just his approach. At least that's my understanding. I've heard some stories at the ownership level across the NHL. Some of his dealings with NHL Commissioner Gary Bettman. I mean, this guy, the one thing that I guess I can appreciate about Dolan, though, is he doesn't cheap out. He spends money on his athletes, and he makes sure that all the creature comforts are there. Everything is at their fingertips. The expectation is, though, if you work for James Dolan, okay, if you're Drury or you're Peter Laviolette or you're any player, the expectation is he believes every year he's got a Stanley Cup favored team. And so I can't even imagine some of the conversations that Drury is is having probably multiple times a week, with James Dolan or the Dolan family just trying to sort this out. It's got to be just hair-raising stuff.
Well, on a bit more of a positive note, I suppose, Montreal last night, Laine gets himself a hat trick. He's got 6 goals in 7 games since returning from his injury. How much of an appreciation do you have for the way that he's been able to get back this season and really get up and running right away?
Yeah, a lot, because of all the adversity that he's faced.
Yeah.
On ice, off ice, injury. When he arrived in the National Hockey League, excuse me, he, like so many teenage players picked high in the draft, he was immature, just physically and mentally. And when you play in a Canadian market, that can be a challenge. So, in the long run, it didn't work out in Winnipeg. They flip him for Pierre-Luc Dubois. That didn't work out in Winnipeg. He gets moved out. Laine didn't work in Columbus. So when the deal went down with the Montreal Canadiens, I think most of us were curious, why Laine? Like, what does Montreal see that the other teams just weren't able to pull out of them? And Kent Hughes explained it to me this way. He just said, hey, we think there's something there. But for the Montreal Canadiens, there was no risk in it, right? There was no risk in this deal. And if it works out the way that it currently looks like it's going to work out, he's a hell of a find for the Canadiens. If it doesn't, all right, a year down the road, you move on, and everybody's fine in the process. But, you like when individual stories work out, and at least for now, it looks like Patrick Laine is a pretty good fit in Montreal.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been a great start, and it's the entertainment business. That building, those fans, they needed something.
They love it.
They needed something, man. They're craving a superstar, and hopefully he supplies that for them the rest of this year into next. I wouldn't commit long term. I think the way things are going in Montreal right now, it feels like next year is another year of, I think, growth. I can't imagine I'm in a position where I think they're going to make the playoffs next year, Dregs. But by the year after that, it better be go time, and that's when Laine's up. So I don't see them having any conversations with him. Not that they can right now, but I guess by the summer, why you would commit long-term to anybody unless you know exactly what you're dealing with, because at some point Demidov's coming over and Hudson's coming, or he's already here, and Mayhew's probably coming, and Reinbacher's coming, and they gotta get these kids in the lineup, and they got to start winning games in the next year and a half.
Yeah, I'm with you. And look, Kent Hughes and Jeff Gorton, as I said earlier, they continue to work it, right? And they're looking for that age-appropriate player. I asked somebody involved with the organization how much interest they would have, saying Kaapo Kakko. We've talked about the New York Rangers. Don't forget, Jeff Gorton drafted him, right?
Right.
And it doesn't sound like they've had any recent communication, but there was some discussion with York in the offseason, and either the ask was way too high or they just couldn't forward it. But Hughes is he's looking to add some pieces, so their intent is to get in the playoff conversation next year, and that's going to be tough.
I am with you on that. All right, Dregs, welcome home, buddy. We'll do it again soon. Thank you for this.
Okay, guys, have a good night.
Darren Dreger, a TSN Hockey Insider.
That's tough. Would you guys go and move somebody up in Muskoka?
That's extreme. Like,
I don't know.
My kids in 20 years, but like just a buddy that calls you up. And do they not have moving companies in Muskoka?
I couldn't tell you, but I could tell you that I'm not going 3 hours north for
No,
it.
and the weather's
Absolutely
terrible
not.
right now.
Maybe in July because he's
That's
moving up
it.
and he's moving up on the lake. Okay,
Yes.
you go fishing, you have a nice
Yes.
barbecue in the middle of it. But in the middle of December, a week from Christmas, no thank you.
That's the play. If you asked me to come up to Muskoka for a week in July, and within that week we're moving, happy to do that. December?
Yeah.
No.
Unless he gets like a week up in the cottage for the week in July as like
So he's like
a
brokering
reward.
a deal?
Maybe.
Possibly.
Payback.
Possibly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I think, knowing Dregs' buddies, they pay him in like Crown Royal. Like, here's a bottle of Crown Royal. Thank you very much.
That's what it
Like,
is.
That's the Saskatchewan way. Like,
Yeah.
for sure. That's what it is.
Yeah,
Booze
probably
and pizza.
right.
I don't know.
Probably right.
That's the currency
all right.
of moving. Booze.
Herm Edwards coming up here. We got our best bets brought to you by FanDuel later in the hour. And Doogie has found a stat of John Tavares. Well, it's not his stat. I think Sport Logic technically
Tremendous information.
founded this stat, but it is some tremendous information on how well he's playing in the areas where he's always been elite. We'll tell you about those going into the game tonight. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app. All right, best bets brought to you by FanDuel later in the hour. Leafs Stars tonight right here on TSN Radio. Look forward to that game. We got Herm Edwards coming up on tough coaching decisions in the league, and a couple of the coaches really popping off in defense of their teams. Dan Campbell was on radio in Detroit. Going to play this in just a moment. Very inspiring stuff from Dan, and he's an inspiring guy. He loves quotes. He's got good ones. We'll play it before we get to Herm. Herm had some great ones.
We play to win the game. The GO quote.
It's one of the all-time greats.
Oh, yeah.
But Brian Callahan, the head coach of the Titans, is going off, or he went off today, because I guess someone either posed the question or there was some, like, I'm guessing there might have been a columnist that wrote something or some sort of coverage around the Titans. They're not a very good team this year. They're in transition, right? They're trying to figure out who their quarterback's going to be. Their offense has been really inept. And Callahan was asked, how does he respond to the idea that some people think his team is soft? And he went nuts in reaction to that. And he was defensive of his team, which I can appreciate. I haven't seen enough Titans games this year outside of the one Doogie made us watch when for some reason Cincinnati was playing them, and that had to be the 1 o'clock layup for Owen Wilson to keep it competitive moving forward. But I appreciate a young coach sticking up for his team. I think you kind of have to, don't you, Noodles? Like, there's nothing worse that can be said about a team than you're soft.
Yeah, I mean, you have to, like, to me, a coach has to look like you're going to take bullets for your players, right? Like, you got to be, if you're going to be a player's coach, or you're at least going to have that confidence and respect within the room, you got to stand up for your players, regardless of what's being said.
For sure. So Herm Edwards in a moment. Let's play Dan Campbell. He's on radio down in Detroit. He does a weekly hit with a morning show down there. And listen, they're in the firing line right now because they've now lost. They've given up a lot of points. Minnie's chasing them. Green Bay's chasing them. Philly's definitely chasing them.
And they're decimated with injuries.
They're decimated with injuries on both sides of the ball. It's starting to leak into the offense now. David Montgomery done for the year. And here's how Dan Campbell had to respond to anyone doubting whether or not his team can get back on top.
You know what happens is, you win 11 in a row, and you lose, and then the sky falls. And I hate to say it, but we're not going to be able to win 11 in a row again for the rest of this season. We're just not going to be able to do it. And, what happens is you get used to eating filet, and I'm talking to all of us, and, everything's good. Life's good, but you forgot what it was like when you had nothing and you ate fucking molded bread, and it was just fine, and it gave you everything you needed. And sometimes you got to get punched in the mouth and remember what it used to be like to really appreciate where you are. And we'll do that. And so we got a bad taste in our mouth. We got kicked around the other day. We lost a few guys. And you know what? It's exactly what we needed. This is exactly what we needed. So we're going to bounce back. We're going to respond. We got guys that are about to have an unbelievable opportunity here. And we will play the game any way needed to win. We still got a good offense. We got plenty of defensive players. I could go rattle them off right now. We're going to put the best 11 on the field. We're going to freaking cut it loose. We're going to play with our special teams. And I don't give a crap if we got to win by 1 point for the rest of the year. That's what we're going to do. And I'm going to be happy about it. We come out of the game with 50 yards of total offense and we win by 1, you're going to see smiles on my face. I promise you. All right? If it's the other way defensively, we give up 700 yards and we win by 1 point, you're going to see a smile from my ear to ear. All right? I can promise you. So we're going to find a way, and we're going to get it done.
All right, so I can appreciate if you're watching on TV on TSN2. That's 97.1 The Ticket. The hosts are like, man, this guy keeps dropping F-bombs.
Oh, it's great, though.
But it's such good content.
Good
We got to keep going here. And you know what's amazing about that? You can hear it. He's on speakerphone, and the phone is probably 20 feet away from him. And he's just yelling.
Revved up.
You know what I mean? Like,
Seething.
If it was right in front of him, there'd be pops. The audio would be possibly inaudible. Like, that's the PR
Probably
staff.
in the gym.
He could be in the gym.
Planking and just yelling at the phone while doing some.
He could be in the gym.
Curls,
I think
maybe?
someone from the PR staff said, you got to go on with these guys. It's your weekly hit. Are you revved up? We're moving the phone 15 feet away, and you can yell and scream. But listen, he's supporting his team, and I like that idea. Yeah. All you got to do is win by 1, right?
That's true.
All you got to do is win by 1.
I saw the FanDuel odds last week going into that game. They were plus 270 to win the Super Bowl, leading the charge. After that game against Buffalo, the injuries that they accrued, they're now down to plus 500 and now in third, shortest odds to win the Super Bowl. So one game did some damage to their odds.
They got a lot of injuries in Detroit, man, and it's tough. And Dan Campbell's trying to hype his team up, but hype can only go so far. You still got to play the game, and you still got to put, like you said, 11 guys on both sides of the ball.
That's what's crazy about Buffalo. Like, you look at that roster, and they just seem to be getting healthier as the season progresses. Like, they had their injuries early in the year, and now guys are coming back. Like, you look at that injury report, you got a lot of dudes who are now back playing, full participants in practice. That wasn't the case a month ago.
That's helpful.
So that's really helpful. It bodes well for the Bills.
Same with Philly, right? The Eagles are pretty healthy. They're ready to go as well. Yeah. Here's former NFL player, coach, ESPN NFL analyst back on OverDrive. Here's Herm Edwards. How you doing, Herm?
I am well, thank you. You guys, I was listening to you talk here and talk about Detroit, but then you talked about Buffalo and, their ability to get some players healthy. Let me tell you guys something. That guy that plays quarterback for them, that's Superman. It doesn't matter if they're coming back or not. When the guy puts his cape on, forget about it.
It's that good, huh?
He wearing the cape. He's Superman. There ain't no doubt. I mean, I've watched this team last couple of weeks. They score 90 points, and they go 1-1 because of their defense. He scored 90 points in 2 games. I've never seen that. The guy scored 90 points, and they're 1-1. This is not college football where you go out every Sunday and score 40 points. Superman, when he puts his cape on, that's what he does.
Yeah, to me, he's locked up the MVP. I'd be curious to get your take on that. But one thing that I found to be pretty incredible, I saw a stat today that Josh Allen hasn't taken a sack since November 10th. 4 games in a row, he hasn't taken a sack. Like, what does that say about Allen, about the way that offense is moving and shaking, that offensive line? Like, they're just all on the same page.
Well, if you do the numbers, he's only been sacked 13 times this whole season. They're number 1 in the league. Now, his ability to run, that poses a problem, too. I mean, even if you try to sack him, you can't tackle the guy. I mean, he's so big and strong, but they're playing, they're playing really good right now. I mean, they just are, their numbers are their numbers, but just the way they play. I mean, they're taking the ball away at a high rate. That always helps you. They're plus 18 in the giveaway, takeaway. Only 5 interceptions and 2 fumbles. They got 13 interceptions and 12 fumbles, so they're taking the ball away 25 times already as a defense. So that's how they get off the field. They take the ball away. Because if you look at their defensive numbers, they're not very good. Only giving up 22 points, but they take the ball away. If you can take the ball away and steal possessions from an offense and give it back to Superman, your odds of winning go way up.
With Herm Edwards, so in terms of the injuries in Detroit and how inspiring Dan Campbell is trying to be, you've been on both sides of it. You've been a player, I'm sure, hearing coaches trying to, pump you guys up and inspire your group when you're probably riddled with injuries. And I'm sure you've been in a coaching position where you look at your depth chart and you're like, man, we're really crushed here. Like, how much can Dan Campbell really do and really believe in his team when they are just so decimated with injuries in Detroit?
Yeah, they are. But I know this. When you sit where they sit, And they're trying to obviously now Philly's there. Now all of a sudden Philly is gaining on them. So they want home field advantage. There's no doubt about that. They lose one of their runners, but I thought in the game they played against Buffalo it showed me something. Although they're hurt, just keep the quarterback standing because they got in the game that was basically the last team that has the ball was going to win, the last quarterback. And Jared Goff, he stood the test. It's remarkable, how he played. Now, it gets shadowed because of, obviously, the way that Josh Allen played. But it's just amazing because you think about it, he throws 5 touchdown passes and loses, and he threw 5 interceptions against Houston and they won. I can't figure that math out. But now they're a different offense because they know they're wounded. They got a lot of players hurt, but the quarterback is a good player. And they're going to have to score points, and they can do that. That's the game they got into with the Buffalo Bills. This Detroit Lions team is built. They want to pound the ball with their runners. They want to become a play-action pass team, keep their defense on the sideline, control the clock, control the possessions. Well, the Buffalo Bills weren't going to allow them to do that. They said, you're going to have to see if you can score with us. Well, guess what? Jared Goff did it. He went back and he started throwing passes. Threw 5 touchdowns and lost at home. So they have enough guys. So we don't have to feel sorry for the Detroit Lions. Say, woe to the Lions. No, they showed me something in that game.
So you're talking about feeling sorry for people and quarterbacks. So what do you make of Aaron Rodgers? And he's now saying that he might not play next year. He's going to figure that out in the offseason. Do you think this season has hurt his legacy, Herm?
No, because we forget about it. We're in the moment. And as time passes, it's not going to hurt his legacy. He's going to go down as a Hall of Famer. I mean, look, the Jets had another guy that was kind of a little bit different, too. They seem to always get the Green Bay Packers quarterbacks. They had Brett Favre, right? Brett Favre went to the Jets, too. Mm-hmm. I mean, how did that work out? Right?
Not great.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
No. And it's almost like, okay, when you want one more place to go to the Jets. We'll take you.
Well, maybe that's where Kirk Cousins ends up next because it sounds as if, he may get paid $90 million for 14 starts. And this is the news of the day in the NFL that Raheem Morris has seen enough of Kirk Cousins, and he's going to Michael Penix Jr., a rookie that they took in the top 10 this past draft. They're still in pursuit of a playoff spot right now. They're chasing down the Bucs. I'm not sure they can get them, but they got a really soft schedule, and they're going to a rookie quarterback this late in the season. How do you feel about that decision by Morris and the Falcons?
Well, I think Raheem was hoping that their last game, obviously, that Kirk Cousins, would show some life. But if you watch that game and you watch Kirk Cousins play, it was hard. It was hard to watch it. He was in fear of letting the ball go. He didn't want to throw. He's hearing all the noise. He wasn't the same Kirk Cousins, a guy that plays with a lot of energy. Even though they won a football game, it was hard watching him play quarterback. And he still threw an interception. I mean, so he's got 9 of them now, all of a sudden. It's not going away. Their offense was kind of, not very good to be nice about it. And so now I guess they're feeling like, you know what? This is the guy we drafted. We can't keep looking at this. Let's go with the rookie. Now, they got to be ready for this, but they've already dealt with it. The rookie's going to throw it to the bad guys. That's what they do. So you can't get mad at him now. He's going to throw it to the bad guys.
Yep.
But the guy that's the veteran guy has thrown enough to the bad guys where they're going, we don't want to see this movie anymore.
And I think that makes sense. I mean, if you have a definitive answer that Kirk Cousins can't get the job done, then go with the other guy. He may not get it done either. Right. But if you know the answer that Kirk Cousins isn't going to get it done, and he's been throwing a ton of interceptions, he looks very uncomfortable. I think you're risking the room. I mean, you can speak to that, Herm, but I'm sure Falcons players are thinking, we got some talent here, and there's a playoff spot that could be available. Throw the kid in, and I guess he's probably been looking pretty good in practice. I don't know what that's worth. But, they drafted him high, so give him a shot.
No, and what happens is the team knows, okay, we've made the change. We're going with the rookie, and we got to help this dude because we're still in this. So the team's not mad. But you just change the dynamics of that team because now they're going, especially defensively, we're going, hey, man, come on, man, we started a rookie quarterback. We got to help this dude.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So all of a sudden your energy's back because the only chance we got to play good around this young guy. So that's the way you got to look at it too.
I can't wait to see what they have in store.
Yeah.
It's going to be an interesting run down the stretch here.
I am curious, though, when it comes to Kirk Cousins, Herm. Like, is this it for Kirk Cousins? Like, after this season, I mean, obviously he hasn't been the same coming back from that injury last year. Is this it? Or do you think after an offseason he'll get another chance to start somewhere else next year?
Well, they're always looking for veteran quarterback teams, and you never know. He might find a landing spot. But you feel bad for Kirk Cousins because he's such a good guy. And he had started off so much well this year. It had this city excited. He was excited. And then he got in this funk, and he couldn't find his way out of it. And last game, watching him play, you could see it on his face. He was very, very cautious. Even though they won, like you could hear him talking after the interview. He was not like, it wasn't like the Kirk Cousins that we were used to hearing, right?
Yeah, it's tough to see that happen, man. Like we asked you about Rodgers, now Kirk Cousins. Those are two different players in terms of their careers and their accolades. But sometimes it just, you either hit a wall or you just need to be in the right place. Like I guess you look at a guy like Russell Wilson. Now he's in the right place.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like a lot of people are writing him off, Herm, and he gets to Pittsburgh and Mike Tomlin and that defense, and now all of a sudden Russ is going to get a crack at playing in the playoffs again.
Yeah, no doubt. And it was, and like you said, he couldn't have landed in a better spot, to be quite honest, because that offense is similar to what they ran when he was in Seattle. A run first, play action. I got a good defense. Back then in those days when he was there, it was the Legion of Boom. They had that great defense. And Pittsburgh can play defense. Now they went to Philly, and obviously Philly, got after them. But their record in Philly, guys, is not very good. I mean, I can remember playing the Pittsburgh Steelers back in my day when we played them. And now they're 0-12 when they go to Philadelphia. So that's just one of those deals is when they go to Philadelphia for some reason. They it's a bad bus ride for them because that's all it is a bus ride. They just can't play well in Philadelphia. And Philadelphia plays good now.
They're legit right now, man. That team is rocking. Your Eagles are playing pretty well. They are playing well.
They're playing pretty good.
Great catching up with you as always, Herm. We appreciate you doing this.
Appreciate you both. Thank you.
There's Herm Edwards, ESPN, former coach, player, college, NFL, former Eagle. Yeah. Eagles are in a good place, man. Yeah, he's done it all. Herm has seen it all. He's done it all. But
I like the move. I'm not going to lie.
Going to Penix Jr.?
Going to Penix, yeah. I mean, it's funny how much we crucified that move in the draft, but now it looks good. Just like Jordan Love. Why did they take a quarterback in the first? They don't need a quarterback. Well, looks like they thought they would need it a little sooner than later. Same thing, Patrick Mahomes. Yeah. They got Alex Smith. What do they need to draft this kid for?
Yeah.
Turned out pretty well. And Penix, for the last, what are we in, week 16? He's been sitting around watching. He's been watching film. He's been in the playbook. He's been doing scout team. You're right. He definitely would have had to show, like, hey, I think I could run this offense better than what that guy's doing. Because the last 5 weeks, 9 interceptions, just 1 singular touchdown, and it came against the Raiders. So does it really even count?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know.
Yeah. Exactly. So, and they're right behind. They're a game behind Tampa, and they got the tiebreak on Tampa. They beat them twice this year. So it's a big opportunity for Penix not only to play, but also get them into the playoffs.
Yeah,
and it'll be a home playoff game. You're going to win the South.
Yeah.
So, I appreciate it too. And I remember saying that after the Jordan Love pick. Quarterbacks are always different. Like, if you feel you got your guy in the future, I don't care who you have, take him. If I'm the Kansas City Chiefs and there's a quarterback that I look at and I'm like, I know this guy can play in the NFL, I'm taking him. Even if he's just a backup for Mahomes, you can flip him and the value you can get in the future. Quarterback is so isolated. It's so different. And like you said, obviously the Chiefs were happy with their pick. Packers happy with their pick. And now the Falcons are happy with their pick, regardless of how people reacted to it at the time. Because it's a position of need, and if you don't have it, you don't have a team. You have to have quarterbacking, or you just simply have no shot in this league. We'll come back with our best bets and tee up Leaf Stars one more time. Leaf Stars down in Dallas tonight. You can hear it right here on TSN Radio. Get to our best bets and tee up the game. We'll do that next. All right, today's best bets are powered by FanDuel. Make your picks and assemble a same-game parlay in seconds on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Maple Leafs on the puck line. They're a slight dog today. So I got the Maple Leafs keeping it close. I could see them winning tonight. Auston Matthews, anytime goal scorer. I think you're playing with Marner. You're playing with Willie. He likes that building, right? I think he passed Rick Vive there a few years ago in overtime. Big celebration, big game. He likes that building. The Leafs like playing in Dallas.
He's got 10 goals last 10 games against Dallas.
I'm on it. Matthews anytime tonight. Leafs on the puck line. That parlay paying plus 191. Today's best bets are powered by FanDuel. Live same-game parlays are now available for every NHL game on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Please play responsibly. 19 plus. Physically located in Ontario. I mentioned referenced a Sports Logic stat from earlier today on the efficiency of John Tavares.
Do you think O would let you even spew out this number you're about to say if he was on the show?
I would like to believe he would because it's, I think, important information.
Tremendous information.
It's tremendous information. Exactly. These are real stats. Like, this isn't some bogus thing that you can manipulate one way or the other. I think it really highlights, what John Tavares does very well, but also what he's been doing well this year. Per game ranks this season in the NHL. Slot shots, third in the NHL, 2.5 slot shots per game. Inner slot shots, he's first in the NHL. In puck battle wins, he's first in the NHL. 4.47 puck battle wins per game. So, in other words, in and around the net, in the corners, along the boards, off the draw, John Tavares is playing at a very, very elite level. I think the eye test would indicate that, but this would suggest it's as good, if not better, than anyone in those categories.
Doesn't that sound
pretty awesome?
Just like Craig Berube hockey, though, Noodles?
It does. I mean, it's speaking to his strength. That's the one thing that John Tavares does very well. He's hard on his stick. He wins a lot of draws. He in that 10-foot radius around the net, he's very good. Mm-hmm. So to me, yes, it speaks to his strength. There was a moment where Macklin Celebrini was number one in the league in loose puck battles.
Yeah,
so,
right.
It is a stat that's tracked. Tavares, that doesn't surprise me. If you take a look at it along the wall, he's heavy on his stick. That is a guy that battles for 50-50 pucks. So, he's had a great start, and you want it to keep going. And I think he needs support along the way as well. That's why I keep talking about depth down the middle of the ice. That way, if he can be your 2 guy, great. If he can be your 2A guy, if there's 2 second centers, Max Domi, I think, would be better on the wing. Although a lot of people like him at the middle of the ice because he can skate and use his speed and be creative. So we'll see. We'll see how it unfolds. But John Tavares has been as advertised and more this season.
Yeah, he's been great. He is more than just pulled his weight. Yeah, he's making $11 million. Yeah. It's not like he's getting paid $850. And you're just asking for the most out of this guy. He is still getting paid a lot of money. He still has a letter on his jersey, not the captaincy anymore. But he's handled a lot of curveballs, and he's done so very, very well. Also, I'm sure very inspired to get a new contract, too. That might factor in. Him help. And Mitch flying out there, playing as well as they are.
That helps.
That certainly can't hurt. All right, Leaf Stars tonight on TSN Radio. And we got a few other games in the NHL, and Raptors are back in action. It sounds like Scotty, I don't know if we have, total confirmation on what's coming with him, but he's going to return relatively soon. So the Raptors, no NBA Cup, but what are you going to do? You push for the play-in, right? The push for the play-in begins today.
Oh, wow.
For the Raptors. All right, tomorrow we got Thursday Night Football. Are we on the clock tomorrow?
We are on the clock.
We are on the clock tomorrow.
Yeah, we are.
Okay.
The spread
I'm not even sure what the game is tomorrow night.
Broncos
Chargers in LA, I believe.
Yes. Ooh. I think the Chargers are favored by 3.
Last time I checked, they were. I agree on FanDuel. I lean points, but we'll see what happens. We'll have a conversation tomorrow. All right, thanks to everyone behind the scenes for helping out. We appreciate it. Everyone for tuning in. Michael DiStefano, great seeing you, Partsy. One more time for the road. There it is. Yes. Hayes and Bro on the clock tomorrow night. Noodles, good seeing you as always as well. We're out of here. Enjoy your evenings. Enjoy the games tonight. We're back tomorrow at
4 p.m.
We'll chat then.